Of Panafest, University of Cape Coast, and African Heritage Studies Association with the concerted goal of uniting for the future of Africa. Our theme, securing the African family, our soul, our wealth, our health. The founder of AHSA, John Henry Clark, traveled to Ghana over 30 times as he saw this as the most meaningful way to refill his soul. Dr. Clark was an ally, confidant, and most of all friend to Dr. Nkrumah, who he referred to as Africa's magnificent dreamer, one who believed we could all become master of our own destiny. So it's through his abiding spirit that I will channel my remarks. Kwame Nkrumah analyzed the extent of the devastation unleashed by capitalism and its highest form, imperialism, as the monopolization of world markets demanded an exploited downtrodden population to provide labor and the consumptions of goods and services. The African has historically served as the engine to this vast machine, creating untold wealth at an incredible loss of life, culture, and meaning. Dr. Nkrumah saw the African in what he regarded as a struggle against world imperialism, as he exposed the contradictions of capitalism that is now more revealed in its present unsustainable trajectory. We are beyond neocolonialism. We are in an era of negative nationalism, anti-Black racism, and failed states. Although we are still in its grips, we no longer use this terminology. Capitalism, imperialism, exploitation. In the elusive world of globalization, each nation state is viewed as an equal partner on the international world stage. We are what political scientists refer to as the end of ideology. There's no need to discuss the possibilities of another world. We did have a moment during the pandemic when we thought we saw a new world, as people of all races and ethnicities coalesced around the fight against police brutality. Thank you, Ghana. Only to find that it was just a moment. The majority of the participants hung up their placards and went home without committing themselves to reform. Since George Floyd's murder, police slayings have continued and in some states have increased. Europeans not only colonized the world, but colonized the narrative, controlling information and presenting it in a way that justified their exploits. Ascendancy of European dominance equated African subjugation. It is utterly unimaginable at this current state of technological development that many of our people are still digging holes for water in Trinidad, Zimbabwe, and Mississippi. People equate time with progress, yet time has passed and little of nothing has changed for the majority of Africans and African descendants who continue to be oppressed under an unfair disadvantage guised as a global economy. We still do not have full access to education, employment opportunities, food, security, and housing. Our cultures have been compromised. The very essence of who we are that feeds us and gives us the strength and fortitude to face any challenges needs to be revitalized in us if we are to move forward. We don't know who we are as a people. We have been separated from our true inner selves, no longer acquainted with our potential, divorced from our strength, yet we remain resilient and desire to become whole. The internalization of the myth of Black inferiority has become the truth for many. Therefore, Dr. Nkrumah and others saw the African solution to end oppression of our race is through African-centered revolutionary education that counters colonial misinformation that leaves us mired in present-day enslavement. a holistic education that embraces the truth of the African past. We have never been a docile people. We have resisted from the first encounter. I have identified 263 revolts and over 400 revolts at sea. Ghana has a rich history of resistance. Ya Asante-wa, King Ansa, Ashanti militarism that extended beyond your national borders and reverberated throughout the Caribbean. Even the soldiers returning from World War II demanded equal treatment. This is what we need to teach our youth. Give them an education that empowers them. Dr. Clark posed the query, how is the African looking at himself in the eyes of the world? What we do for ourselves depends on what we know about ourselves and what we are willing to accept about ourselves. The primary foundation of our education should be love for ourselves and our people. Today we paid homage to true visionaries, W.E.B. Du Bois, George Padmore, Kwame Nkrumah, and John Henry Clark, who all shared the same dream of a unified Africa to address our dire conditions within the fold of the African diaspora. It has been 120 years since the first Pan-African Congress, and we came close to that dynamism in 2001 when African descendants came together in Durban for the World Conference Against Racism. Our goal was to bring the issue of global reparations onto the world stage. Of course, the Europeans, America, and Israel attempted to drown our voices and demands by equating what they termed as compensatory measures or any crumbs off the table as being representative of reparations. Kofi Annan implored the African NGOs and governments to not allow the conference to fail over a single issue. However, the African descendants at WCAR view reparations as an umbrella term to encompass all of our issues and needs, from clean water, infrastructure, education, health care, respect of our cultures, art, even the methodology we use to do research that keeps us marginalized. Many view reparations as a check, a payment, but it is so much more than that. It is about respect. The Europeans in their arrogance would not even apologize for the devastation that they wrought, for that would make them culpable. Their only admission was that the transatlantic slave trade and slavery should be declared crimes against humanity. Full declaration would have given us legal standing to sue for reparations in the international court. Colonialism was totally taken off the table. They wouldn't even consider an apology for the exploits that continue to this day. The African governments met in Dakar that same year and penned a document that called for in-kind and financial reparations on the continent. The Caribbean governments have formed a reparations commission and issued letters to the former colonizers, inviting them to the table to discuss reparations. African Americans have finally moved the bill H.R. 40 that was named after 40 acres and a mule that was supposed to be extended to the former slaves after slavery that never was. That bill was introduced in 1989 by Representative John Conyers, and it just got out of committee this year. It is a bill to study and develop a case for reparations. There has been movement in terms of dialogue around reparations. For the first time in history, the issue is being discussed on a global scale where the African and African descendants are the objects of repair. The end of slavery saw reparation payments made to the enslaver. In fact, the UK has only replenished their national debt used to pay those enslavers in 2015. So in essence, all of us who have accounts in British banks have paid the enslavers. Some artifacts have been returned to the continent, including the skulls of our ancestors for proper internment. Germany has acknowledged and admitted to the genocide of the Herero and thousands of others in Namibia and have pledged $1 billion in compensation just 2 months ago. The University of Glasgow has dedicated resources to study reparations. The General Assembly of the United Nations has acknowledged indigenous land rights over colonial exploits, and private individuals, governments, and some corporate entities are revealing their role in slavery and have pledged repair. The major legal obstacle is removal of the time bar requisite. There is no statute of limitation for crimes against humanity. Yet, even in this moment, the horrendous nature of the transatlantic slave trade, slavery, and colonialism are still not deemed crimes against Africans and African descendants. Are we not human? We are still suffering from the transatlantic slave trade, slavery, and colonialism today. It's not post-traumatic, it's present and ongoing trauma. Scientists have proven the transmission of trauma through one's DNA. This is the basis of the legal strategy to link the current state of devastation of Africans and African descendants to past enslavement and colonialism. Secondly, make apparent the instances of unjust enrichment by governments, individuals, and institutions from slavery and colonialism. Now, the Pan-Africanists in the Caribbean have presented self-reparations as a step towards full reparations, gaining control of our diets, mental and emotional well-being, and taking on the concern of our neighbors. Every morsel of food we take into our bodies is an act of liberation, as it is going to lead to our enhancement or demise. Being mindful of our thoughts and their effect on us, as the mind cannot distinguish between thought and action. Revitalizing our spiritual health, connecting to our ancestors and a higher being to strengthen and encourage us to forge ahead. Dr. Clark regarded our cultural heritage as the fuel for a revolutionary stature. It was culture that led Samora Machel, Amilcar Cabral, and Thomas Sankara to lead their people to victory. Our acceptance and assimilation into Western culture, ideas, and astounding untruths is leading us further down a path of demise. It is time to reclaim ourselves, our heritage, our culture, and bring our populations into sustainable health and prosperity. As we near the end of the decade of African descendants, it is time to support the case of global reparations. John Henry Clark stated, "We are standing at the crossroads, and we do not know which foot to put forward." Our ancestors will not rest, nor will we as a whole achieve our greatest potential till this case is won. We are in a fight for our lives. The frontal attack is to erase us from history. In the words of Dr. Nkrumah, Africa needs a new type of citizen, one who is dedicated, modest, honest, and informed, being fully submerged in service to one's people, a person who opposes greed and detests vanity, one whose humanity is their strength and integrity is their greatness. It is time to step into that vision. Thank you.